I like your background.
Hi everybody, welcome to a whole new wee show. My guest today is the wonderful Caroline Madden. I've heard so much about you.
Oh, thank you.
So let's get started. Where are you from? Tell us about yourself.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me on, Tara. I am honored. I live in Dublin, in Malahide in Dublin, but I'm originally from Longford. I moved here for college, and since I was about 8, I wanted to be a writer. And I started writing poetry, and I forgot about it then during my teenage years. And it wasn't until later that I came back to writing. I was working in um, a sort of business job, uh, but it wasn't for me. And then I remembered how much I loved writing. And so I got into journalism in my 20s, hoping that getting published as a journalist would lead me towards my dream, which was of getting a novel published. And so I'm 44 now, and it's taken me all this time from when I was 8 to 44 to get a book deal. But I have one now, and my novel's coming out next year, and it has been worth it. And I love I love what I do. I love writing, and so I'm just so happy and grateful that it has come to this point and all the hard work has paid off and that the stars have aligned finally. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah. How did you start your website, My First Deal?
Oh yeah, my blog. I think I started at a time when I'd written 2 full novels and they'd all been rejected by publishers. And so I was feeling really down about writing and ever getting published. I was really at the point where I was going to quit. And then I thought, no, you know what? I'll just try harder and I'll learn more. And so I thought, what I'll do is I'll talk to writers who have got book deals and find out how they did it. And so I didn't think anyone would let me interview them for the website, but they did. Um, and so I interviewed writers that I knew, first of all, and learned from them how they got an agent, how they got a publisher. And then I moved on to writers I didn't know, lovely Irish writers, UK writers. And what I realized was that we just see, like, you go into a bookshop, you see like the lovely finished product, and you think, oh, that must have been easy for them. But what I realized from interviewing authors was that they'd all had rejection, almost all of them. And they almost all thought it wasn't going to happen. And that gave me hope that everybody goes through failure, everybody goes through rejection, but that it doesn't mean it's not going to work out in the end. And so also that's how I met your brilliant friend Roisin.
Yeah, that was going to be my next
Hi.
question,
Yeah,
actually.
Roisin. You're having
She,
Roisin on?
you're what? She's watching probably.
Oh,
I'm going to
hi
post this
Roisin, you're
later.
there.
Hi. If you could give one piece of advice to a person, what would advice would you give?
Do you mean in general or somebody who wants to be a writer?
In general.
In general.
Yeah.
Um, well, my approach has always been to do something that you love with your life. And of course, bills have to be paid and you have to be practical. But that's my philosophy on life. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. Well, I do, or I just can't get enthusiastic about it. So I would say to people to follow what they're naturally passionate about, what they have a natural ability for. Um, you might have to have a day job in the meantime that isn't your dream
Yeah.
job.
Hmm.
But I would say to follow where you're natural. Like I often think that children, when they're 8, 9, 10, have a much clearer idea of what they should do with their lives than a lot of adults. And you often forget what it is that you loved doing. But I would say to people to hold on to that because that's where you're naturally drawn to. And then, well, it's worked for me anyway. So that would be my one piece of advice.
What's your favorite book?
Oh, well, I have three favorite books. Um, I have a favorite fiction, non-fiction, and what was the other one? This is my favorite book right here. This is my Bible, and I keep it beside me. I wouldn't I wouldn't consider that I was a feminist until I would say really the pandemic hit. And I'd had this giant book in my house for years. It's like, I don't know, 500, 700 pages long. It's called The Second Sex. It's Simone de Beauvoir. She's a feminist
Yeah, I know
writer.
her. Yeah,
Was.
I know her.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I love that book so much, and it
yeah.
inspired. I went back to it again and again and again while I was writing my novel. So it was a big inspiration for my novel.
How would you describe self-help?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, Self-help was something that I thought I didn't need again until the pandemic. So the pandemic changed a lot of things, but the pandemic was stressful for everybody. And I realized that what I need more than anything is time on my own, which was hard to get in the pandemic. And so since the pandemic, I've realized there are things I need to do to stay feeling happy and productive and in a good mood. So now I make sure I get out in nature every single day if I possibly can. And if I don't do that, I could feel my mood dipping. So my number one self-help thing that I know it's different for everyone, but my number one thing is getting out as much as possible on my own in nature. Um, but I also now do meditation, which I always thought was not for me. So I do that, try and do that every day, sometimes several times a day for 5 minutes. And that has helped me in so many ways. So I know it's
Very
different for
good.
everyone, though. It mightn't work for
Very good.
everyone, but it definitely works for me.
And one more question before I go. I like to ask everyone this, but what's your favorite food?
Oh, my favorite food.
Yeah,
my
what's your
favorite
favorite
food
food?
is my favorite food is definitely chocolate. I have some here. My children love. I shouldn't admit this. My children are keen on Mr. Beast, and he has chocolate, and we were like, we have to try out his chocolate, see if it's worth all the hype. But I'm addicted to chocolate. I'm addicted to coffee. I can't write, can't do anything without it. So they're my two weaknesses, and they fuel my writing completely. So definitely.
That about wraps it up. So subscribe today for a whole new week, and thank you, Caroline Madden, for coming on.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much, Tara. I've loved it.